Well, the Republican primary debate has wrapped up without its star candidate, Donald Trump, who chose to skip the event. Lots of reaction in the press already. Deepti Laurent is here to take us through it.
Well, Sharon, Donald Trump's absence was a bit of an attack point. Donald Trump's absence was really the attacking point for the 7 Republican presidential candidate hopefuls. That debate, which the Washington Post says brought chaos, attacks, and a slug for second place in Trump's absence. Vivek Ramaswamy, the young upstart who really dominated the headlines after the last debate, tried to present himself as less cocky, less know-it-all this time, while Tim Scott, the senator for South Carolina, came off as more assertive, taking swings at the other candidates. The Washington Post also saying that the candidates took to task Joe Biden on a host of topics from inflation to immigration. Ultimately, though, as Vox says in this article here, the primary debate on Wednesday was not a, quote, real event, but a performance, a show, a pantomime, a shiny object with virtually no relevance to the outcome of a 2024 presidential primary, except to win second place. Donald Trump is leading the polls by far for his second term, though, Vox says would represent an existential crisis for the United States, for American democracy. The website going with this picture here, as you see, of Donald Trump with minions, which Vox says might as well represent those 7 candidates who were duking it out in that primary on Wednesday. Now, from the conservative press, this is from the Washington Examiner, which also argues that the Republican primary was essentially a congested mess, also making an argument that there are too many candidates and arguing in favor of having fewer candidates. The writer complaining that candidates spent too much time attacking each other and not enough attention on frontrunner Donald Trump.
Moving on then to the French newspaper Le Figaro, which is focusing on the mysterious disappearance of China's defense ministry. Deepti.
Yeah, it's on the front page of Le Figaro today. It's a lead story. Here you go. Xi Jinping and the mysterious purges at the head of the Chinese army. That's what Le Figaro says. And in its coverage, it explains that the disappearance of China's defense minister, Li Shangfu, who's not actually been seen since the end of August, is really the latest in a series of mysterious disappearances, including high-ranking military officials. It's once again put President Xi Jinping's murky authority and control over the military under the spotlight. Li has not been seen in the public since a China-Africa summit, prompting reports from the foreign media that he's under investigation for possibly corruption. His disappearance follows that of the foreign minister a few months ago and the subsequent firing of that minister. These high-profile firings, definitely not a good look for Xi Jinping, whose regime really rests on the image of stability. That's from Le Figaro. It's also the focus of a recent article from Foreign Affairs, the Current Affairs magazine, which suggests that President Xi's hold over the military might be less complete than imagined, and says that this latest disappearance also goes to show how corruption and mismanagement continues despite Xi Jinping's supposed ironclad control over the Chinese military.
Next to Venezuela, Deepti, where the recent police storming of a prison for a high-profile fugitive revealed some shocking details.
That's right. You can read about this in the Washington Post today. 11,000 police officers in Venezuela were recently dispatched to a prison, the Tocoron prison, in search of Hector Guerrero, the head of a criminal organization that started in prison and has since spread across the continent. They didn't find him, but they discovered in the prison a professional baseball field, swimming pools, children's playground, and even a small zoo complete with monkeys and flamingos. 200 women and children were also residing in the premises of this prison, which the Post describes also had an elaborate concrete underground tunnel system, much like the prison home of Mexican drug lord El Chapo. There's now a continent-wide red alert for Guerrero, but questions arising as to how on earth they were able to build this luxury resort inside this supposedly secure prison in Venezuela.
Finally then, to what is perhaps the world's most expensive underwear and the most uncomfortable. What's that all about, Deepti?
You can read about it in The Guardian today, Sharon. This is possibly, not quite confirmed, but possibly the world's most expensive knickers from Miu Miu, the luxury Italian brand that recently launched these high-end, silk-lined, wool sequined panties, all for the cost of pretty much a cheap second-hand car, $5,600. Also being wool and sequined, they are no doubt the world's most uncomfortable undergarment you'll ever wear. Such is fashion that one must suffer to look good. These panties have almost sold out on Miu Miu's website. One social media user quite succinctly put it as the undergarment that is also probably the most expensive yeast infection you'll get.
That's one way to look at it, Deepti. Thank you so much. We won't dwell on that any further. Thanks so much. That's Deepti Laurent joining us there with our press review.